Please be seated. Good evening. Welcome to Trinity College Chapel for our annual Baccalaureate service, celebrating Trinity College's class of 2024. The theme of this year's service is the same as previous years: Thanksgiving. This service is an opportunity to pause before the formal commencement exercises tomorrow to offer gratitude to one another, to God, and to our faculty and staff for the steps in our journeys that have led us to this incredible moment. Graduates, you are to be commended for this amazing accomplishment. The class of 2024 has navigated much to get here. In 2020, your high school graduations were likely canceled or conducted remotely because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Your earliest college days were dominated by confusing pandemic guidelines and rules that, while meaning to keep us safe in a very uncertain time, likely made forming new friendships and relationships more difficult than normal. Just as we were emerging from the early days of the pandemic, a member of your class, Jillian Hegarty, was tragically killed 2 years ago in a hit-and-run accident on New Britain Avenue. Your senior year has been dominated by the news of violence and unrest around the world, a devastating terror attack in Israel, and a subsequent war that has resulted in a humanitarian disaster in Gaza. This doesn't even capture the personal struggles that accompany being in a liminal part of your life, leaving one reality while not having quite fully stepped into the next. I know how difficult it might be for us to look at all of this and to find anything worth our gratitude. As I reflected on what I might say to the class of 2024 to bid you all goodbye, I really wanted to come up with some quip, some quote, some maxim that would bring an instant resolution to this 4 years. I don't have that today. Instead, I have a bit of a poem that I hope offers you some wisdom in the days ahead, and then a prayer. If you've not read David Whyte's poem, Second Life, I highly recommend it. In fact, as you're leaving the chapel today, we have copies of it for you if you would like to take one with you. I come back to it often in the course of my work as a reminder to choose to be just a bit more brave in my day-to-day interactions. The portion I will read comes at the end of Whyte's long exploration of a fearful, small, narrow, safe sort of life. I'll just read the end of it for you. And perhaps, most intriguingly, and most poignantly, and most fearfully of all, at the very end of the long road it has traveled, it wants to take me to a high place from which to see, with a view looking back on the way we took to get there, so that it could have me understand myself as witness, and thus bequeath me the way ahead, so it can teach me how to invent my own disappearance, so it can lie down at the end and show me, even against myself, how to undo myself, how to surpass myself, how to find a way to die of generosity. Class of 2024, you are here because in some way, large or small, you chose your first life, your braver life, your more courageous life, a life of adventure and curiosity. May you continue to choose this life as you open the door to your next chapter. Let us pray. Holy One, as we gather this day in your presence at the precipice of a new adventure, help us to see our journey to this point as you see it, or at least help us to see that you do see it. Help us celebrate all the triumphs and joys. Help us see those who supported us in the moments of pain and tragedy. Help us see in the complexity of our own lives a sacred kinship with every human being on this planet. Help us see our journey as one of transformation. Help us be grateful. We offer this prayer to you in the names of all of our faithful ancestors. Amen. Next on our program, the chapel singers will offer an anthem entitled, Sing to the Lord a New Song. This anthem, composed by renowned composer David Hurd, was commissioned by the chapel to honor the current chair of the Trinity College Board of Trustees, Lisa Basaccia, and her husband, Robert Naparstek, for the incredible philanthropic support for the chapel during the college's bicentennial year. It debuted this past winter at our annual Festival of Lessons and Carols, but this is the first time Lisa and Robert get to hear it in person. After our anthem, I will be back to introduce our baccalaureate speaker. I'm here to introduce our baccalaureate speaker. Glenn Falk, professor of practice in policy and law, focuses on current First Amendment issues regarding disinformation, hate speech, and incitement to violence on social media. He is also concerned with the role of race and poverty in our criminal justice system, including capital punishment. He would like to help students understand and critique legal arguments and develop analytical writing and oral communication skills, whatever their political or career aspirations might be. As passionate about history as he is about the law, Professor Falk holds a master's degree in history from Trinity College, in addition to his undergraduate and law degrees from Harvard. His areas of interest include history of the United States Supreme Court and law in the early American Republic, with an emphasis on the framing of the Constitution, slavery, federal and state relations with indigenous people, the history of gun rights and gun regulation, and the modern ramifications of these subjects. Together with students, he has investigated the roots of mass incarceration in Connecticut's prison and jails. Before coming to Trinity College, Professor Falk spent more than 3 decades as a legal aid lawyer. He represented hundreds of indigent criminal defendants in state and federal court and was repeatedly recognized as one of Connecticut's leading appellate advocates. Professor Falk draws on this experience to teach law, argument, and public policy, a course in which students write briefs and argue appeals. Professor Falk was nominated by several members of the graduating class, including a student named Wheat O'Hagan, who has this to say about Professor Falk. It is extremely difficult to fully encapsulate the extent that Professor Falk has impacted the lives of his students. However, I will endeavor on this seemingly futile task. Professor Falk has been and will always be the definition of the Trinity spirit, and it is very appropriate that he was selected by the students to be the baccalaureate speaker in light of celebrating the bicentennial of Trinity College. But what does Trinity College spirit mean, and why is it Professor Falk? In the classroom, his curiosity and dedication to his students draws out discussions that not only question their traditional understanding of the world, but allows them to grow in their appreciation for everything around them. There are no wrong questions, nor wrong answers, just stepping stones toward attaining new knowledge. Outside of the classroom, Professor Falk's door is always open, no matter if you are an advisee, current student, or an unfamiliar face. Professor Falk will lend his time to you. He will always share his words of guidance and ensure that the student leaves his office in a better manner than when they arrived. His kindness and ability to listen to the issues of the students, whether big or small, make him a guiding figure and a friend to us all. As we will soon graduate from this place and start a new journey away from Trinity, it is important that we carry with us the experiences and people that shaped our time here and made us better, more complete individuals. Professor Falk, from all us students, you are one of those people. Thank you. I invite you to welcome Professor Falk to the podium with a round of applause.
Members of the class of 2024, with your family and friends here today, I welcome you with great affection and admiration. Tomorrow you will walk across the stage and become college graduates. Please give yourselves and each other another warm round of applause. You truly deserve that applause because your college degree will be very special, the envy of many people you will meet in your life. You will be graduating with a degree not just from any college, but from Trinity College, a 200-year-old institution of the liberal arts where you have been able to study with the experts everything from algorithms to Zanzibar. And you richly deserve that applause because of what you have endured in the last 4 years. As Reverend Haley mentioned, you earned your college degree during the COVID pandemic. I salute you for your grit and your adaptability. You are one of the strongest classes ever to pass through these halls because of what you accomplished individually and together in a very difficult time. Remember your first year seminar when you walked in and everyone was wearing masks? It was not a terribly auspicious start. As your professor, it was hard for me to recognize all the students from the eyes up. And when a student spoke in class, I sometimes didn't know where the voice was coming from. Who said that? But eventually we all figured it out. And I believe that the bonds between the faculty and the students with each other are stronger for what we went through together. I understand your excitement about tomorrow because I too walked across that stage and received a Trinity College degree, a degree in history, a master's degree. My decision to come to Trinity was one of the best decisions I ever made. When I started my first evening class in 2004, little did I know that 20 years later, I'd be standing here in front of all of you, giving this baccalaureate address and listening on commencement weekend to that beautiful music. This may be the closest I ever come to hearing a heavenly choir. I'm standing here before you because one of my history professors in the graduate program introduced me to the head of the public policy and law program where I now teach. I didn't plan for that. I didn't expect it. But this is one of the messages I would like to leave you with today. That life will unfold for you in delightful and unexpected ways, provided you challenge yourself and embrace new opportunities. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. Try new things. In real life, the add drop period never ends. At first, I worried that I might not be able to juggle my law practice with studying for a master's degree in the evenings, but I'm so glad I took on that new project. And I was able to succeed, I believe, because reading history was one of the things I love to do. So there's a lesson in that for you too. Do the things you love. You will need to earn a living, of course, but you should not neglect the things which bring you joy. And one of the things in life which I am convinced brings people the most joy is learning new things. So never stop learning. Build on the intellectual curiosity fostered here. We have here at Trinity a wonderful program for adults in the community called the Academy of Lifelong Learning. Each of you graduates can be in your own person an academy of lifelong learning. I came to better understand the power of learning recently when I started teaching at the women's prison in Niantic. And one of the students said that when she stepped into the classroom, she didn't feel like she was in prison anymore. In addition to learning, I firmly believe that much happiness in life also comes from helping others. Simply being kind to others in the workplace can be really important. My brother recently retired from a career in legal publishing, and a few months later he received a note from his former boss. And she wrote and said, "I didn't realize how much time you spent mentoring other employees." So there are two kindnesses in that. One, how my brother treated others, and two, the fact that this former boss took the time to write a kind note. That's the sort of thing everyone can do in whatever situation they're employed. I must acknowledge that life will not always be easy, and you know that already. As Reverend Haley mentioned, there have been tragedies and difficulties. Many of you have shared with me the problems of a medical, financial, or legal sort that you've had to overcome. I'm thinking of you especially today. Reach out and grab a hand, or be the one to extend a hand to someone else. Let me tell you about one of my own experiences when I was discouraged and how much needed words of encouragement to me came from an unexpected quarter. As a court-appointed lawyer, I lost a lot of cases. Despite my best efforts, a lot of my clients wound up in prison. In fact, for all my clients there, they should probably name a wing of the prison after me. One of the cases I lost concerned a man who was convicted after a jury trial. What do you do when you lose at trial? I read an article recently by a 19th century lawyer who said you have two choices when you lose at trial. You can either file an appeal, or you can go down to the tavern and yell at the judge. I filed an appeal in this case. My client had been convicted of murder, and I argued that he was deprived of a fair trial and a jury of his peers because a potential juror was excluded from hearing his case on the basis of race. During jury selection, the prosecutor moved to excuse the prospective juror, a woman of color, not because she knew the defendant or the witnesses or had already formed an opinion about the case, but because of how she described herself on the juror questionnaire. One optional section of the form asked prospective jurors to state their race. The judicial branch was collecting this information to keep track of the data on jury composition. In this case, the woman in question was a teacher, and she had previously served on a jury. But she chose not to describe herself as black or white. In all seriousness, on the line for race, she simply wrote human. She was a human being, a member of the human race. Well, this was too much for the prosecutor, and the judge upheld the exercise of the peremptory challenge. And I thought that was wrong. Why do some people make such an issue about how others identify themselves? Citing books and articles from sociology and other fields, I wrote in the appeal brief that an increasing number of people identify themselves as multiracial. People of mixed ancestry might opt to describe themselves as human or rainbow or use some other combination of words that might be unfamiliar or unusual to a person, say, of European ancestry. But that's no reason to keep them off a jury. Jury service is one of the most important things that citizens in a democracy can do, aside from voting. The description of one's race has nothing to do with the ability to be a fair and impartial juror. So my client was serving a very lengthy sentence, yet he was able to look beyond himself and his own fate. He said something to me after reading the brief I wrote, which I will never forget. He told me he passed the brief around to his fellow inmates in the prison for them to read. And he said to me, "No matter what else happens, you have already won." Isn't that astonishing? I did lose that appeal, and many others, but years later, the Chief Justice of the Connecticut Supreme Court appointed a judicial review commission to examine jury selection in Connecticut. And in the course of their deliberations, they cited the case I just told you about and others. And so, in their cumulative effect, my losing cases may have had some positive impact on the law. So, members of the class of 2024, when you go forth from this place tomorrow, never lose faith in yourselves or your compassion for others. Speak up for justice and equality, even when it seems you cannot prevail. Your liberal arts education has enabled you to appreciate the perspectives of other people, their sorrows and their achievements. Here at Trinity, you've been exposed to many different ideas. You've learned to listen to others and to share your own views. You've been given the chance to interact with students and faculty from across the country and all over the world. You have thrived in athletic competition, in the arts, in laboratories, in student government, on the mock trial team, in religious and cultural organizations, in clubs and societies, on rafting and backpacking trips and other outdoor quests, in internships, in study abroad. Draw on the spirit of cooperation and friendship and teamwork generated in these places and bring that to other places which are sorely in need of such values. Your type of college education will be much needed because the most pressing problems in today's world are multifaceted. Scientific, economic, and ethical issues are all bound up together. Take, for example, climate change or the challenge of what we should do with artificial intelligence. These complex matters require the talents of liberal arts graduates who are versed in the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. As my fellow professors and I have often said, our students give us hope for the future. We have seen you grow so much in these last 4 years. Many of you have already surpassed us in your knowledge and your ability, and that is how it should be. Lastly, when you go forth from this place tomorrow, be an active believer in democracy. Be sure to vote. Show up for jury duty like that teacher did. Run for office yourself. Volunteer. Get involved in your community. Engage in these same pursuits with the dedication and resilience you have shown to make it all the way to today, the eve of your college graduation. Despite the obstacles which seem to be insurmountable at times, your experience at Trinity College is a gift, the likes of which few people will ever receive. You should be very proud of what you have accomplished here. Congratulations to all of you in the class of 2024. No matter what else happens, you have already won.
Graduates, today's baccalaureate and tomorrow's commencement ceremony are the culmination of a period of celebrating you. From final presentations, department dinners, and honors day to senior week, there has been much on-campus activity devoted to recognizing you and your accomplishments. And now, finally, here we are, officially marking your transition from Trinity College to whatever comes next. One of the purposes of these ceremonies is to convey to you our absolute confidence in your ability to navigate your next steps. In that liminal and sometimes scary space between one stage of life and another, ceremonies such as these are grounding. There is a story in the Talmud that describes how the ancient rabbis would bless each other as they left the Beit Midrash. Although Beit Midrash literally means house of interpretation, it is typically translated as the house of study. The rabbis would spend many hours in the Beit Midrash studying texts and debating fine points of Jewish law. Trinity College has been many things for you: a home, a community, a place of growth, and hopefully, at its core, a house of study. On the eve of your departure from this house of study, I offer you an adaptation of the rabbi's blessing, a blessing that envisions a truly embodied integration of your learning. May you see the world in your lifetime. May your future include living in a redeemed world. May your hope resonate for all generations. May your heart murmur with understanding, your mouth speak wisdom, and your communications with others include words of praise. May your lips express knowledge, your eyes reflect the light of great learning, and your face radiate with the brightness of the heavens. I invite you now to stand as the chapel singers sing their final anthem, Our Alma Mater, 'Neath the Elms.